First, I'd like to welcome aboard our newest member of the Humberflube family, Jim McFlinigan.
Mr. Humberflube, I wanted to thank you.
Fired.
I beg your pardon?
Fired.
But I...
Hello YouTube, how is everyone doing? It's Professional here. So I got a video talking about Mindseye and like the aftermath of the disaster and what's going on exactly. So I made a poll a couple hours ago, and I would ask you guys, anybody who hasn't voted in it, to still vote in it. It's on my post section of my channel. But I asked, can Mindseye recover the same way that Cyberpunk can? Out of 3,400 people that voted, only 7% said yes, it can recover, 63% said it will never recover, and 30% said it can somewhat recover. And I'm still concerned for Mindseye. The reason I'm concerned for it is because of one thing. Agent 47 is supposed to come to this game, like, next month or the month after. He's supposed to come in the summertime. And Mindseye apparently is in the same universe as Hitman now, and I'm a very big Hitman fan. And I'm really scared they're going to mess up Agent 47, like, I'm really terrified of that. But you know, we have this roadmap for 2025. This was released before the game's, Disastrous. So I don't know if this has been, if this is going to get delayed. But, we have things like Races coming out. We have a Horde mode mission. But for the summertime, we have the special collaboration, community updates, and new missions. And that is going to be Agent 47. Again, I don't know the specifics. I don't know if he plays Agent 47 or what happens. The only thing I know is Agent 47 is coming in that. And then Fall, we have new single-player modes, well, multiplayer, and then new missions. I wonder what the multiplayer is. I'm generally curious what they're going to do with the multiplayer. And then Winter, we have the special collaboration, free roam updates, new missions. No idea what that's going to be there. So I don't know if this roadmap is delayed or anything because of the disaster. But here's the thing about Mindseye. Mindseye, and I'm going to link my sources down below here. This is from Build a Rocket Boy. Build a Rocket Boy has confirmed that IGN's report that the redundancy process has begun at the studio, issuing a statement that failed to say how many of the staff may be affected. So basically, the staff, a number of the staff has been let go, fired. We don't know the exact number here, but I can assume a lot of people have been fired after this Mindseye disaster. Leslie Benzie's probably not getting fired. He's probably going to keep his position, but a lot of other people have gotten fired. And I'm going to say this is, I feel bad for some of the workers who worked in the game and tried, because there were developers who did work on this game and tried. Now, hear me out. The people that I blame for this, the people that I blame for the disaster of Mindseye, the people that I blame the most at this is I blame the corporate people. I blame the corporate people that are at the top, because the corporate people at the top, there was red flags this game was going to go wrong. Bad things were going to happen with this game. Like, red flag, the biggest red flag was that there was no review copies being sent out. When there was no review copies being sent out, that is a very big red flag that there is something wrong with this game. And these corporate big shots, these corporate CEOs, the way that they look at this stuff is they look at this and they say, oh, if the game has glitches and problems, that's fine. We'll fix it later. Let's release it in a broken state and get our money right now. And so they don't want to delay these games. And that's the thing is, I cannot believe that somebody like Leslie Benzies allowed this game to be released in this state. A guy who worked on a masterpiece like San Andreas and GTA 4. I cannot believe that somebody who worked on masterpieces like those games had agreed to let the game be released in this state whatsoever. So I don't know what was going through his mind, what he was thinking, but this game was clearly not ready. And this game apparently had testers, that were playing beforehand. But I don't know, if this game had testers, I don't know how they could have tested this game and told them that it was fine in this state. I don't know, something's not right here. So there was probably developers that probably tried, they probably worked hard on this game, and then when the game failed because of all the glitches, those developers were probably blamed instead of the corporate, big shots who decided to rush this game out. But on top of that, it's not just the glitches. The glitches are bad, but then there's also gameplay issues, because I personally think that Mindseye is not going to recover, and the reason I don't think Mindseye is going to recover the same way that Cyberpunk is, because if you look at, for example, like a game like Mafia 3, Mafia 3 was the other game that Hernandez started, the guy who plays as Diaz. Mafia 3 had a lot of glitches at launch, but Mafia 3's gameplay was overall fun, and its story was also decent. So Mafia 3 had that good gameplay, had that good core element. It was just glitchy, but then when the glitches were fixed over time, it became good. And the same thing with Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk was a glitchy, broken mess at launch, but the gameplay, the story, the map, everything was good. But then when the glitches were fixed, the game was generally good. It was generally fun. Mindseye, on the other hand, does not have that. The problem with Mindseye is that this game is basically a never-ending storyline. It is a never-ending one. And the thing is, though, is I know some people would compare this to, like, Mafia 2, for example, like, because Mafia 2, it's like you never have a break in between the missions, you're just constantly doing the next thing over and over again. But the thing with Mafia 2 is there are other side activities that you do, like, you know, your cars get gasoline, you can get food, you can sell, you know, cars to Brewski at the scrapyard, you know, so it's not like the game is constantly forcing you to the next objective in the same way that Mindseye is. It's not like there's a break in between missions, but there's just more to do in the world in Mafia 2, and that was a 2010 game versus, you know, a 2025 game. And when you think about it, Mindseye does not even have an in-game map. It doesn't. How the hell do you have an open world game and not have an in-game map? So there are definitely developers that I think that this was their fault and they deserve to get fired. But then I think there are other developers who they wanted to work hard in the game. They tried to work hard in the game. They were rushed probably by these greedy corporate big shots, and then they probably threw all the blame on them and then fired a bunch of them. But a lot of people ended up getting fired at the studio too. And, you know, the thing about this is, you know, I have a lot of emotions going through my head about this a lot. You know, at the same time I saw this coming. This was basically their own fault in a way. They released the game in a buggy, you know, state. But at the same time I didn't want Mindseye to fail. I wanted Mindseye to succeed. I did. I generally wanted the game to be good, but unfortunately it's not. I wanted it to be good because we need more competitors to GTA. GTA should not be the only, you know, open world crime game out there. There should be more competitors to it. But unfortunately, you know, we didn't get that here with Mindseye, and we probably won't for many years. You know, GTA 6 is going to dominate the market for you know, probably a decade, and there's probably not going to be any game that's going to be even close to it at this state. But this is what IGN reported. We can confirm that we have had to make the painful decision to notify our hardworking team of some internal changes to build a Rocket Boy. While we are working to reassign roles for as many of those impacted by these changes as possible, sadly, we are initiating a formal consultation process that may result in redundancies. This decision has not been made lightly, and we are committed to handling this process with transparency, fairness, and respect for all employees. We will provide further details to the team over the coming weeks. So look, you're gonna fire some of the developers who, you know, the developers who decided not to make a map in the game. Yeah, I can see why those developers deserve to get fired. But at the same time, the people who should be fired also are the big corporate big shots, the big CEO people, the big people at the top who decided to launch this game in this buggy mess. And as much as Mindseye was a disaster, there is actually some good that's gonna come out of this disaster, guys. You know what the good thing that's gonna come out of this disaster? The good thing that's gonna come out of this disaster is that other companies are at least going to see that and see this is what happens when you release games in buggy states. People get angry, and that's why I'm so proud of the I'm so proud of gamers online that they did not stand for this BS, and they basically stood up to this and said no more of this BS. If you're going to release a game, you got to release a game in a good state. I remember when I played on the PS2 when I was a kid, PS2, even PlayStation 1. Game companies had to make sure that everything was correct when they released the game, because there was no way of patching it afterwards on the PS1 or the PS2. And then, you know, even on the PS3, a lot of developers also made sure to make that the game would be in a good state. But then with the PS4, it started with the PS4 and the Xbox One, and now with the PS5, developers are like, oh, if the game's buggy mess, that's fine. We'll just release it like this, let the fans deal with it, and then we'll fix it over time. No, you don't do something like that. This game should have been delayed. It should have been delayed until at least Christmas. The launch of Mindseye has been a significant milestone for Build a Rocket Boy, but we know that we will have a lot more to do to grow our community in the coming years. The challenges we face have only strengthened our resolve, and while we are deeply saddened by today's decision and thankful to our incredible team, this shift allows us to focus on delivering ongoing updates and performance optimization for Mindseye, while also ensuring the long-term success of Build a Rocket Boy's future ambitions. Oh, man. And in the story, Build a Rocket Boy has told staff that redundancy process had begun amid the disastrous launch of Mindseye. The cuts could affect over 100 employee studio sources. So at least over 100 people could be affected. One person who has to remain anonymous in order to protect their career told IGN there's no word yet on exactly how many staff are affected. But the standard 45-day consultation process starts today, June 23rd, which according to UK law is triggered when an employer proposes 100 or more redundancies within a 90-day period. IGN understands Build a Rocket Boy currently has around 300 UK employees, with around 200 abroad. IGN has asked Build a Rocket Boy for comment. Ooh. So yeah, that's it. They're losing staff, But on top of this, also this. This is from the Mindseye main actor, Hernandez, Alex Hernandez, who actually played as Jacob Diaz. This isn't what I expected. Mindseye actor wasting on PS5's flop shoddy launch. I don't love it. Mindseye actor Alex Hernandez has reflected on the release of Build a Rocket Boy's debut and expressed his distaste for titles launching unfinished. The open-world PS5 game attracted a disastrous reviews this month and is comfortably the worst rated release of the year so far. We scored a 3 out of 10 in Mindseye PS5 review, describing it as a futuristic pace plan. And speaking with the YouTube channel Check It TV, the star who plays the main character, Jacob Diaz, in the game, said the final product wasn't what he was expecting. There's something to be said about the model of studios releasing games unfinished. It's not the QA. I met the QA testers, and they seem confident in their job. But for whatever reason, the company decides to release something with these issues and then takes care of it post-release. Obviously, we're not the first game to do that. Cyberpunk 2077 is a notorious example. As a gamer, as a consumer, I don't love that. Hernandez explained he's not a businessman, so he doesn't understand why the decision was made to launch the title in such a state, but he argues it's important for companies to be honest with their consumers. And I'm honestly surprised that he spoke out against the company. I did watch this interview earlier. I'm going to react to it here, guys. But generally, he doesn't regret his role in the project. He does, he likes the team he worked with. He had fun with the game. And the thing about Alex Hernandez, like I said, this guy cannot catch a break. I feel so bad for this guy. I really do feel bad for this guy because he debuted his biggest video game role, Lincoln Clay, in Mafia 3. And when Mafia 3 came out, when that game came out, it was a buggy, glitchy mess. But at least it was fixed over time. And then, he works for years with Mindseye, thinking this is going to be the next big game, and what ends up happening is it's a buggy, glitchy mess. It's even, much worse of a disaster. So he's a great actor. He is. He's a great guy. He's a great actor. And I had no problems with his role in Mindseye. He did a good job. And with his acting, he was playing like a traumatized soldier. He did a pretty good job. He's a pretty good actor. He is. So I feel bad for the guy. I'd be pissed too if I was the lead actor. That he went through all of this stuff, and then the game turned out to be a disaster because some CEOs decided to rush the game out. But anyways, we're going to react to this here. I'll also link this below here. Also, I'll watch it on I'll watch it on 1.25 speed if that's okay. I usually watch videos on that. I don't want this video to be too long. But...
Implanted. That's crazy. Never know. We're going to talk about Mindseye and, the project itself. How are you feeling with it all at the moment? Is it a bit up and down, or is it up, or are you still happy? Yeah.
I mean, it's had a complicated reception because whenever you work on something for many years, regardless, I work with good people who are trying to do a good thing. And so there's a pride in games are hard, man. Games are hard to produce, just like films. It's a really huge undertaking to get one off the ground at all. So I'm proud of the people that I worked with. It's a shame that the gameplay in particular has received such negative reception and such, in terms of bugs, as a gamer myself, I completely understand the frustration. There's no, to me as a consumer and as a gamer, there's a shared frustration in why would you as a company release something that seemed to not be ready in that way?
Yeah, and 100% right on this here is why would you release a game in this type of state exactly? Why? It's like I said, it's a corporate big shots think, we'll just release it now and fix the glitches later and let the fans deal with it. But the fans aren't having it, and now the entire game is hurt. And so the people that did actually work on Mindseye, like Hernandez here, they gave it their all. A lot of the other actors gave it their all. They tried, and I feel bad for the actors. I do, because the actors don't have anything to do with the gameplay development themselves. They're just reading the script. They're starring for the roles of the characters. They're trying to give it all their acting. But when it comes to the glitches and stuff, that is on the developers.
In terms of people's opinions about the gameplay itself, I'm a big proponent of everybody has an opinion. Everyone's entitled to have different tastes, to like different things. So if you put the bugs aside, whether or not people are into it, that's between them and them, right?
Yeah.
Because for example, I'm not such a big fan of, let's say a multiplayer shooter like Call of Duty or something like that, or when my friends were all into PUBG. It's just not my thing. So even if the gameplay is great, I'd be like, yeah, it's fine. It's a shooter. You run around, you do the thing. The map shrinks, whatever. I don't care for that kind of gameplay. Yeah. So in that, I have no response other than enjoy what you enjoy. In terms of the story and the cinematics, I actually find there's a couple of glitches that I find pretty amusing.
Yeah.
There was one that was circling about Seb and how sort of I don't know, HR Geiger, he like turns into this weird creature because the thing stretches his face out all funny. I actually kind of like that stuff. Obviously, it's not on purpose. That's a bug. But I find that amusing rather than being disappointed or frustrated by that. It's just kind of like, all right. And I loved working on it. Like I loved the people that I was with. The cast itself was great. Everyone showed up and gave their all and was a decent human being. We had no assholes, which I'm really grateful for. And I had a blast working on it. Build a Rocket Boy treated me very well. They were very kind to me. In terms, as an actor, you know that you don't have necessarily as much creative direction as you'd like. It's not like I go in there and I go, this is what I think the story should be. But they did allow me opportunity to give feedback, and I did when I felt appropriate about one, many of the developers were from the UK, and so they'd ask questions that are like, does this feel American? Does this feel blue collar? Does this feel like a soldier? Does this feel like something that someone from this background would say? And there were many times where I was like, no, and then they change it. And I appreciate that. I appreciate they were open and receptive to the feedback that was like, actually, that doesn't sound like us in the States. That sounds very British or very insert thing.
You're allowed to improvise on the game then, so that's good. Yeah.
So listen, about Mindseye is, he's raising a good point here, is that part of the story was decent. Like, Mindseye did not have a really bad storyline, and this is why I personally prefer Mindseye even over Saints Row. Like, I did a poll asking you guys what game was worse, and more people, actually 75% people voted for Saints Row the reboot, and the reason I think Saints Row is worse than Mindseye was because Saints Row was a fan favorite that failed. Like, it should have taken the old formula, and instead it just changed it so much that it was, something that we didn't recognize anymore. And the story was terrible, cringe. Mindseye at least had a decent storyline. Like, and the city in Mindseye, I think we can agree, the city in Mindseye was so much better than the city in Saints Row. So the story was somewhat decent. It was the ending of Mindseye was just terrible. It was terrible. I don't really want to spoil it here for anybody who hasn't seen it yet, but the ending for Mindseye was terrible. For the most part, the story was decent, and I did enjoy it, and it seems like these guys that he was interacting with right here, these guys primarily were the writers. So these were the writers that he was interacting with. The writers, again, these guys aren't really going to have anything to do with the gameplay itself. The gameplay is going to be more focused on the developers, the people, the level designers, the people that are in charge of that type of stuff.
Yeah, and allowed to have a creative voice within the structure. It's not like I was sitting in the writer's room. I think ideally, like, because I have the mind of someone who writes and directs as well, that would be cool if I ever had a project, whether it was a game, a TV show, a film, whatever, where you get to sort of be on the ground floor of creating the narrative as well. But they treated me very well, and they gave me a lot of freedom to do my thing, and I did that to the best of my ability.
I mean, the cutscenes are still outstanding because I did have a little go on it, and it is like amazing of what it has, sort of like potential. Do you know what I mean? It still is potential. It still is a really good game that can be played. Did you expect the outcome of the game when it?
No.
The cutscenes were decent. They did look good for most of the game. Is it the gameplay itself was really bad?
Oh,
yeah.
Be honest, like
the team, do you think?
Narrative wise, like the end of the story.
Yeah, like, I mean, just like all of it, like the quality and the the glitches and the problems with the game. Did you expect all that in the team?
No, and I mean, narrative and gameplay is kept very separate, right? Like, so I'm working with the cinematographer, the on-set director, the writers. It's not. I'm introduced to the team mostly because I ask. I'm like, hey, I'd love to meet the people who are developing / working on the physics, or folks who play with my model and my appearance and all that sort of stuff. But it's not as though I don't see them day to day, so I get very little feedback or information in terms of like, how is all of that going, right? You focus on, just like any large enterprise, I have no idea actually how many employees, but in that building day to day, there were at least 200 people. So it's not as though I'm interacting with each of those people on a day-to-day basis, getting little updates that are like, here's how everything's going. And so when the game came out, obviously you're very excited. It's just this moment that's been years in the making. And then to receive the feedback that was like, oh, this is glitchy. And it's glitchy. And I'm being like, wait a minute, what? That's not what I was expecting. I think not for nothing, there's something to be said about the model of studios releasing these games. I don't know whether it's not a lack of QA. I met the QA testers and they seem competent at their job. But for whatever reason, the company deciding to release something that has these issues, and then sort of taking care of it post-mortem, post-release. Obviously, we were not the first game to do that. Like a very notorious example is Cyberpunk, and there have been others. And as a gamer, as a consumer, I don't love that. I don't love that model. I don't like that moving forward. I'm not a business person. So I also want to be very clear that I have no idea why that decision gets made. I will just say that from a consumer perspective, and I'm sure a lot of people feel this way, I think it does more long-term harm than good to your reputation to release something that feels like it is in a state of less than 100% and then charge 100% of the price, right?
So what I was going to say about this is, spot on, 100%, I 100% agree with what he's saying here, is why are these developers, like, releasing games in these terrible states and then thinking, oh, we'll just patch and deal with this stuff later. And I'm generally surprised that he's speaking out on the game like this, because he probably has all of his work done with the company. He probably has no more contracts with them done. He probably has all of his work done with the company. And so he's probably not concerned about getting sued or anything by the company afterwards. So his work is probably all done with the company. That's probably why he's speaking out, and he's being very careful not to name anybody. He probably has a good idea probably of who's to blame for this, like probably names like people at the top. But he's being very careful not to name anybody. He's more like generally just saying about the company, but he is speaking out about this.
Yeah.
I think you have to be honest with your consumer, and in fact, like, I, as a player, would rather be told this is in beta. Like, I know you've been waiting for this for a long time, but this is a beta release of this game. And so whether it's you get to play it for free on some sort of invite list, or it's $20, $30, $15, what insert price. I don't know what the model would be, but like, it's a much smaller fee. Know that this shit isn't done. No, it's not done. So please come interact with our thing, give us feedback, but no, it's not done. And obviously beta is a thing, like that is a already pre-established practice. And so I'm not sure what drives companies to essentially carry out beta testing like without calling it that.
Yeah.
I, as a consumer, would rather be told would rather have someone be upfront, because then I know what I'm signing up for.
Yeah.
But that's
do you think they knew about the problems within the game before they released it? Do you think they were aware that it would be the turn up?
I can't really speak to that, to be honest. I truly don't have the day-to-day access or conversations with the higher ups like that.
Okay, so again here, see this? He's being very careful with his words. When the interviewer is asking him, do you think they knew about these problems beforehand? And he's like, I don't know. I can't speak on that. He's being very careful with his words not to implicate anybody in this. Again, I don't blame him. I don't blame him for this, because he's working with this company. He might still have some potential contract or some kind of ties with them, and I guess, he doesn't want to ruin that or get himself in some kind of trouble here, so we can't really blame him. Don't get pissed at him for this, guys. But he is at least speaking out on the problems that the game is facing. But, from our perspective, we don't even work there. All of us, we don't work there, but we know the developers, the main people in charge, they definitely knew. There's no question in my mind they didn't know. They definitely knew about the problems, 100%. You cannot convince me that the developer that is releasing a game like this in this state, that they don't at least know about half of the problems like this. They definitely knew. He's just being very careful. Again, he has ties with this company. He's being very careful not to implicate anybody. He probably doesn't want to get into trouble. That's probably why he's being very careful with his words right here. But yeah, that's what I'll say about this is is he's being very careful. I don't blame him too. But they definitely knew about this, and they chose to release the game in this terrible state. They did, and the fact that no review copies were allowed, that's a red flag that they knew, even more proof that they knew about the state of this game was in.
Everything that I saw at the stage of development in which I saw, because I've been on this project since 2021. It's been a long time. It's been 4 years. They were already developing. This is how it always works. Like, I'm brought into the process a few years down the line of them already having worked some things out from a narrative and from a gameplay perspective. It's not like I'm brought in day one, right? Yeah. And so they'd already been working on it for many years. And as I was being shown things, let's say a year into the process, 2 years into the process, 2.5 years, all that, everything for the time period where I was like, oh, there's like 3 years left. This looks great. Like, this looks fun. Yeah, it's a little rough, or like the animation here is not perfect, or like, yeah, that was a little janky in this part, but there's another 2 years. Like, this looks good for where it's at, right? And so I have no idea, and I have no idea what their process is. That's not something that they share with me, and nor doesn't really make sense. I don't want to say it doesn't make sense, but it is not a necessary part of my job to be shown that. And so I don't push for it, because I'm not the game director. I'm not the gameplay designer. I'm not even a QA.
Why do you think the gamers are really hating on it, though? Do you think it's because there's a Rockstar, games worker working for them, or do you think it's, an ex-producer from Rockstar Games that, is doing the game, or do you think it's just because it doesn't work at the moment? If that makes sense. I don't know if it was the producer or director from Rockstar.
It's the CEO of the company.
Yeah, CEO, okay.
I think it's, like everything, it's mixed, right? I'm sure there's some amount of people that whenever you leave a pre-established franchise, they're going to associate you with that. Expect the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Rockstar has, and that franchise in particular, has a ton of money. You know what I mean? to use the phrase colloquially, they have more money than God. Like they have the ability to throw money at a problem in the same way that a major movie studio could, right? And to expect the same level of budget or problem solving from a studio that is brand new and much smaller as of now, right? It's just not realistic. That's not a realistic consumer expectation. And at the same time, as a consumer and as a gamer, like I said, I would share the frustration. I do share the frustration of being like, this game is glitchy. I don't care who you are. Like, I don't care if this is your first game, your 100th game. If it's glitchy, it's glitchy, right? So, and there's multiple truths, because there are going to be people who have a vested interest just because they have at least. It's just like Kendrick versus Drake, for example. Like, some people are going to hate on Drake because they love Kendrick. Some people are going to hate on Drake because they actually just hate his music. Some people are going to hate on Drake because it's fun. All of that is fair game. For the record, I'm not a Drake fan myself. It's because, particularly, I don't like his music. It's not because of, like, I don't care where he's from or what he did before. I just happen to not vibe with his stuff. And I'll be honest, I think that I don't know that it necessarily matters, like, why. Well, as someone who creates things for a living and views himself as an artist, like, I don't view myself as a worker, even though acting is my job. I'm an artist. So I care more about the process of creating something and then the conversation that happens afterwards than I do about micromanaging people's responses. So, for example, I would be more interested in asking that question to the person who doesn't like the game than anyone involved. I don't really care. Like, for me specifically, I don't care about my own opinion as to whether or not I think people are hating on Leslie because he is who he is, or hating on the game because of him. I care more about asking them that question, because I would like to say, hey, are we able to divorce the product from the person? And if so, what about the product? Because in the future, as an artist, as someone who cares deeply about what he makes, what can I fix for you in the future for the things that I make? Not fixes in patches and fixes in, like, how.
What I'll say about this too is that one of the reasons that a lot of GTA fans are getting pissed, there definitely is some Rockstar fanboyism where people just hated on the game from the start before the game even, released, just because it was a potential competitor to GTA. But another reason that a lot of people are, hating on the game is because of the fact that Leslie Benzies had basically run his name on this game, and he tried to basically kind of go with that. And we knew this guy's like the main guy involved in GTA 4, San Andreas, really great games like that. And so we expected so much more from him. But, I guess I don't know what was going through his mind, if he was going off of his reputation, thinking, oh, it's my reputation, people are going to buy the game just because it's me, Leslie Benzies here. But that's what people are pissed. People were like, this was nothing like your previous works. This is not like, you made such amazing games, San Andreas, GTA 4, worked on GTA 5, Red Dead Redemption, and now you release this game, this terrible mess. So that's what fans were pissed, because they expected so much more from him. It's like you have a renowned developer, like an amazing developer, makes amazing games, and then he's been working on this project for years, and then he releases this project, and it's, crap. So people are pissed about that.
We are talking about, quote, fixing a game. Like, how can I, as an artist, be more mindful of what I put out in the future? So if there are things that you don't respond to that I feel like are within my control. So someone was like, I feel like the actor who played Jacob just didn't get the emotional gravitas of this story. I can work on that. If someone just says, I think that guy was kind of a punk, I can't work on that. I'll put it frankly, Lloyd. I don't care about that opinion. There's not enough nuance in that opinion for me to do anything about it. It's not an action item. And the reality is, like, you're entitled to that opinion just as much as the other person. Yeah. A consumer or a human is entitled to that subjective experience just as much as someone else who I might actually be like, oh, I can interact with that. Like, that means something to me. Let me do. So in the age of the internet, I think it's a fool's errand for me to try and figure out, like, why are people hating on it? The response is, like, they are, and they are vocal enough to let you know, at least consciously, why they are hating on it. They're saying something like, it's all these glitches. I think the narrative has plot holes. I think this, I think that. And other people who are saying, I love it. I'm having a great experience. And actually, I'm not experiencing the glitches. I'm not experiencing this, that, or the other. I actually don't mind that there's, like, a limited selection of weapons. I like the driving. I like this stuff. I love your character. Like, as an individual, I'm lucky enough that if someone seeks me out to engage with me, it is often positive. It is often someone who wants to say something kind and about how they have enjoyed their experience. I'd also be blind to ignore the voices that aren't coming to seek me out specifically on Instagram or on other forms of social media to say, hey, I'm not having a good time, or like, this is what I find wrong, and blah, 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 blah. I think it would be.
What I'll say about this is that he does raise a point that some people like certain characters, some people don't. Like, For example, Aiden Pierce in Watch Dogs. When Watch Dogs 1 came out, a lot of people hated on Aiden Pierce. They said that he was a terrible character, that he was emotionless. But then afterwards, like, after a few years, he became the most popular character in Watch Dogs. In the Watch Dogs series, he became the most popular, protagonist. People liked Aiden the most. They kind of compared him to, like, Batman. So he got that hate initially at the start, but then people started liking him over time. So I get where he's coming from, that there's all these different opinions on characters. But the thing is, though, is that the main criticism against Mindseye, I have not seen anybody say that Jacob is a terrible character. I haven't seen comments of people saying, oh, Jacob's a poorly written character, Jacob's like an idiot or something like that. I have not seen, comments like that. I had no problem with the main character. I actually kind of liked him. I actually kind of liked Jacob in a way, Diaz. I kind of liked his sarcastic tone at times. I really liked it how he cursed in Spanish a lot of times, a lot of scenes. I did like that. I thought he was kind of a funny guy at times too. So I didn't really have a problem with Diaz. I thought that Diaz was actually a decent character in Mindseye. But this goes to show you that even if you have a game with a very likable main character, if the game itself is not working, if the game is a buggy, glitchy mess, people are not going to like it, even if the main character is likable.
Sort of, ostriches like bury their head in the sand. Yeah. Like, to ignore that entirely is different than saying, I can't let that affect my self-worth or like how I view my own contribution to this project. But to be like, well, it doesn't exist, it doesn't matter, those people are just wrong, is like, I mean, you're trying to get people to buy a product. So it might behoove you to listen to the consumer base just to see the responses. And if you agree, for example, let's take the premise, glitches aren't great, right? The consumer does not want glitches in their product. I think most people would agree that that's by and large like a pretty ubiquitous statement, right? So if that is true and people are telling you there are glitches, listen, like that might behoove you if you want to sell the thing that you're selling to listen, right? At the same time, if some people are saying, I think the narrative is doing too much, they're going all over the place, there's robots, there's this, there's that, without spoilers, there are too many things in one narrative, right? Some people might say that. Other people might say, I love how much is going on in this narrative. Some people might say, I don't want any more X-Army, blah, 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 it's boring, it's been done a bunch of times. Other people might say, that's really meaningful to me, I love that. Those are subjective experiences that as an artist, like me as an individual, and then the company as a whole, as a creative institution, you can decide whether or not you agree with that. Those are things that are like, okay, cool, we might just have different tastes. I can't please all people. So if somebody wants to say that, for example, Jacob is not hard enough, or Jacob is too hard, or Jacob is not sensitive enough, Jacob is too sensitive. Like, these are things that I hear and go, do I agree with you or not? If I don't agree with you, thank you for your opinion. Respectfully, I'm not going to change my shit. I'm not, because I don't agree with you. But I'm also not going to tell you you're wrong, like, because you're not. That's your experience of this thing that I am doing. Now, if I had created a character that I thought, for example, was super gruff and gritty and dark and thick, and then everyone's like, man, that guy's kind of a pansy, that guy's like really overly sensitive, then as an artist, there's a disconnect, right? I think I'm doing blank and everyone else is receiving it as I think I'm doing X and they're receiving it as Y. That I need to reflect on, because then my self-awareness isn't matching up with what the audience is receiving. I'm saying I created this broody, fucked up guy, and they're saying, yeah, you kind of created a lollipop. Then that's on me, right? I need to examine.
He does have a point that there are a lot of fans like different characters for different reasons. Somebody will like somebody else. Like, I like Aiden Pierce, other people don't like Aiden Pierce. Everybody has their likes and dislikes, but it's also important for a game to keep its identity. Like, a game, when it needs to keep its identity, because when a game keeps shifting its identity, that's when you're going to divide fans the most. And like, for example, Saints Row 1 and 2 had, the gangster feeling, the gangs. And then, Saints Row 3 had this crazy, action. And then Saints Row 4 went even more of the crazy action, now with superpowers. And now you had a very divided community. You had people in the Saints Row community that liked the old-style gangsters, and then you had people that liked the superpower stuff. So the community was divided, and the developer didn't know what to do at that point. And then they decided to release Saints Row the reboot, and that was, they tried to basically appeal to everybody, and then they made the characters extreme cringe, and it backfired really badly. But I think that for games to avoid this, they need to have a good identity.
But if I wanted to create a lollipop because I thought that was interesting for the character, and people are like, you're a lollipop, I don't like it, then I go, oh, I don't really give a shit. Thank you, you nailed it in one. We just disagree.
Yeah, I can only imagine what it'd be like if GTA 6 fails as well when that comes out.
Look, and I am firmly of the opinion that there is room in the world for all of it, right? I'm not here to talk shit on anyone's effort to create something of their own. I don't care if it's in direct competition with me or whatever I'm making. And especially in the position that I'm in, I am not in direct competition with any franchise project. I end up in direct competition with other people as an actor because, for example, there are certain actors, whether it's in the New York scene or in Hollywood in general, that are around my age, around my type, look kind of similar, have a similar-ish vibe. And we are often in direct competition with each other. Like they're casting a film or a TV show and it's down to 3 people. And often those are going to be 3 similar people, right? People that I know or that I've been in competition with before. And I put competition in air quotes because I think the normal way of looking at it is, well, 3 of you went in for that role and only 1 of you got it. That person won. And I think at my age and been doing this as long as I have for 15 years professionally full time, I'm actually not in direct competition with anyone on earth. I'm in direct competition with myself to be better than I was the day before.
Yeah.
And otherwise, the choices that are made to hire that guy or girl over me are actually usually not about something I can control. They're often about things like, that person lives in LA, we don't want to pay to move you. So you guys are great. You're both good for the role. Neither of you is bad. It's not like they gave it to a shitty person. They just gave it to them because they saved 20 grand not having to pay for flights and an apartment for 6 months and blah, 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 blah. Or they say, that guy's 5'11 and you're only 5'9 and our leading lady's 5'10. So he's always going to be taller than her. You go, cool. I can't do anything about that. I can wear lifts, I guess. But like the reality is that's not me, right? Yeah. So when people talk about something like GTA 6 and comparing it, I get why, particularly because our CEO's former relationship with that company. And however he wants to manage that relationship and that narrative, that's for him. But I look at it as like, I hope they're successful. To me, a rising tide lifts all boats. That's my opinion. And so if a game like that comes out, does well, and in fact, to some extent sets a model that's like, we knew at various stages that it wasn't ready, so we waited. I would actually rather a precedent be set of like, wait, like get it right. Yeah. Like release the thing right.
Right? Until it's ready, yeah.
And that's exactly right. And beyond all of that, I'm just not here to wish ill on anybody else for the sake of my own success. I actually don't think that is a way that the world should function. So I wish them success, if for no other reason than the gaming environment as a whole becomes healthier, because people are like, wow, what a triumphant, successful thing. Games are fucking awesome. Maybe there's more of them. Maybe it consolidates power at the top. I'm not smart enough to like clairvoyantly see the whole future, right? But I also am not interested in trying to bring somebody else down. So I hope that it goes well.
Yeah, no, of course.
So that is that's him right there, Alex Hernandez, and he's overall a really great guy, really great actor, nice guy. And I will tell you though, I wish him all the best. I do. I feel bad for the guy. He worked years on this project, and then it turns into this disaster. So I do feel bad for the guy, and I also feel bad for the other actors that tried in this. But I wish him all the best. And I hope that whenever he's going to, work on his future project, whatever he works on, I hope that it's a massive success. Put all that time and effort in the acting, but then the developers mess up the game itself. But thank you guys for watching. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think down below. Do you think that Mindseye is done? Is it dead? Or do you think that it can recover in any way? Let me know down below. Thank you guys for watching. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful day, guys.